Mattityahu Yahukanan, Doimin Yashayit Shak, here tonight to talk to you more about, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to talk about organized stalking, and I'm going to talk about slavery, and this is a form of slavery. Organized stalking is a form of mental slavery. They've got to get to your mind first. Then if they can get you in prison or a mental institution, or even have you 6 feet under, that's what this government wants to do to you. All right, no doubt about it. First of all, they've got to break your mental will down. They've got to get you down to what you're willing to do to express yourself. Through anger, through murder, or killing, or whatever, or drinking, or doing drugs. Okay? Once they can break you down mentally, then they're going to put you in physical slavery. The prisons of America are the biggest form of slavery in the world. Mental institutions are even worse, because once they can get you in a mental institution, they can get you for life. Then they're going to make a lot of money off your flesh, and if you're getting Social Security, they're going to take all your money. They're going to take care of all of it. This is all wrapped up in money, folks. People in this targeting program of organized stalking by the CIA, FBI, DOJ, military-industrial complex want first to put you in mental slavery, then they're going to put you in physical slavery. The jails, the mental institutions, the idea of that kind of a thing can actually be found back, all the way back to the time of Abraham. And I want to look at the book of Jasher, and I'll go back and get you the chapter here in a moment. So the idea of a concentration camp can actually be found in the book of Jasher, chapter 9. This is a book that none of the Baptist scholars or any of the evangelical scholars want you reading. But I'm going to go to 9, verse 11. Oh, 9:11, yeah, right. And Abram, the son of Terah, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and YAHUAH was with him, or the Lord. And the Lord gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation were vain, and that all their gods were vain and of no avail. Do you today want to stand up and say, the works of this generation are vain? That what people are working for is in vain? A lot of people work so they can go on vacations, so they can feast sumptuously, so they can drive the nicest cars and have the house they want, or live comfortable with no troubles in their life. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said to himself, surely now this sun that shines upon the earth is God, and him I will serve. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed to him. And when evening came, the sun set as usual, and Abram said within himself, surely this cannot be God. Right, the sun goes down. If God is from everlasting to everlasting, how can God cease to be when the sun goes down? So Abraham started coming to his senses. And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes towards the west, north, south, and east, and he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abram saw the stars and the moon before him, and he said, surely this is the God who created the whole earth as well as man. And behold, those his servants, his gods around him. And Abram served the moon and prayed to it all night. And in the morning, when it was light and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the things that the Lord God had made upon the earth. And Abram said to himself in verse 19, surely these are not gods that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of God. And Abram remained in the house of Noah, and there knew the Lord and his ways, and served the Lord all the days of his life. And all that generation forgot the Lord, and served other gods of wood, stone, and rebelled all their days. So even Abraham was involved in pagan idolatry. He had to come to his senses too. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all of the earth of one tongue and words of union. Nimrod, you can find the first vestige of what you know today as a concentration camp and the concept of a new world order. Nimrod controlled the entire world. You wouldn't read this just out of reading Genesis. You have to go to Jasher. And by the way, Jasher has been mentioned in the book of Chronicles and in other I think Samuel and some other books. And I think it's maybe in the Judges. But anyway, Jasher is mentioned many times. So it's an authoritative book. I don't care what your scholars say about it. They don't want you to know this because this is not the reality they want you to understand. They want you to understand the reality they've created today. All right. So now he had control, right? And they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower they had imagined to complete. Let's go back to verse 23. And I'm itching. They all went before the king, and they told the king these words, and the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. All the families assembled, consisting about 600,000 men, they went to seek an extensive piece of ground to build the city and the tower, and they sought in the whole earth, and they found none, like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar. That's consistent with the book of Genesis. About 2 days' walk, and they journeyed there and dwelt there. And they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower they had imagined to complete. Oh, well, who's burning fires today? Directed energy weapons in Northern California and Southern California and other places in the West and other places, they're trying to set fires right now to chase people out, and so they can have their little Babylonian cities, their little Nimrod kind of cities. You look at most skyscrapers today, and they're like phallic symbols. They're like the thing about Nimrod. Okay. So when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And an account of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders and their assent to it until those who had went up had completed a full year. And after that they reached to their builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus it was done daily. And behold, these ascended and others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. Like today, who are the casualties of the people? Many died who built the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco. Many of you don't know that. And many people have died building other marvelous edifices in the United States of America, including the former Twin Towers. And now that those have been taken down by our government, those men died in vain, even more so. So Elohim had to confuse their tongues. Okay, so why do I say all this? This is the first. You can go read the book of Jasher, chapter 9. You can get it online if you don't have a copy. Okay, but understand this is the first concept of a concentration camp. And then from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, Joseph was kind of imprisoned, and that was kind of like a concentration camp, but he came out to be second in command to the Pharaoh. And then that carries over from the time when you read the Exodus and says that none of these pharaohs knew who Joseph was. And so the Hebrews were imprisoned. They were forced to do the slavery of the Egyptians, they were even required to create their own brick with their own straw. After they couldn't hold down the Hebrews from growing, okay, you could keep on going. Then you can go to Isaiah 35:37, and you could see that Sennacherib, the idea of a concentration camp was to say, Hezekiah, you could stay there, you can hang out there for now. I'll carry you off to my land, and we're going to give you better than what you got now. All right? And of course, you see the intertestamental period. A lot of things like the Maccabean revolt and other revolts that were caused by a false priesthood that Malachi and Zechariah actually talked about. And my goodness, whenever you see towers, something ought to click in your head. Arrogance, hubris, Nimrod, Freemasonry. You ought to be looking at cities and gates. And look today at these shopping malls and Walmarts. I mean, they're built like castles. Your churches are built like castles. Okay, you don't even know that the church system is based on building castles for places of worship. Even they don't look like the castles of the Knights of Templar. They're equivalent to them. When you go to a church, you're living in you go to a concentration camp every week and you don't know it because it looks nice inside. It's well lighted. It's appealing. It's comforting. It's so assuaging, and you have no idea what you're really getting into. So, I mean, the idea of a church as a concentration camp ought to start to ring in your mind when these 501c3 churches, most pastors are on the clergy response team. They're ready to betray you. They're ready to hand you over if you don't get vaccinated, if you don't get the ID chip. And now we see today that Mr. Joe Biden has been selected. He was probably selected 4 years ago. You guys think this just happened yesterday? I don't think so. And in America, these big cities are becoming nothing but concentration camps. You don't even know that walls are being built around these cities. Kind of like more natural walls, kind of like you can't really tell, but your cities are going to become concentration camps. In fact, these little cubicles they want to build for you to live in are going to be your concentration camp, and they're gated and they're multi-purpose, and they're there to keep you not going far. And it's definitely built to stop the spread of the gospel. I've been mentioning this many times. It's time for you to wake up and wise out. You are in a concentration camp in your 501c3 church. Go look at the older Baptist churches with the Masonic dedication headstones or just dedication stones, or just a lot of them look like the old federal buildings. And now most of them are downtown, and the churches, they have those buildings. They're built like federal buildings. I've seen these kind of similar buildings in smaller towns. Get wise, okay? Understand the idea of concentration camps isn't new. And you know what? Like I said, the first thing they want to do is get you into mental slavery in this stocking program. The mental slavery is to get you hating people, wanting to kill people, get you to want to do drugs, alcohol, take some substance, smoke pot, commit a crime, go to prison. Then once they've got you mentally, then they've got you in the prisons and the mental institutions, and even some churches are this way. Shelters are also part of this. Those are all the physical places, the physical prisons that you don't suspect are prisons because they seem comfortable. They're going to tell you they're there to help you, and they're there to make your life a better life, and it ain't never going to be so. Their goal is to get you on their big pharma drugs, their psych meds, their psychotropic meds, their anxiety, their Xanax, their all these medications, and get you under control. A lot of people aren't coping well with this Babylonian idea because you're not supposed to. It's not what we're made for. Don't give them medication for something. Just tear down all the buildings and let's go back to the old path. I mean, you blaming people that you shouldn't blame? No, it's the government's fault. They supply the meds, they supply the drugs, they do the drug trade. Let's go blame them. But let's take responsibility that we don't fall into their satanic traps. That's what I want you to remember today. Satan is the god of this world, and he runs the United States of America. And you know, the United States of America has a drug trade. That's how the economy keeps on going. Don't fall into the traps. Be very careful today, because I've fallen into too many traps without having been involved in drugs. They can tempt you with sex, they can tempt you with beautiful women, they can tempt you with many ways. We're at a time now where all these things about relationships and marriage it's gonna diminish the importance of them. For those of you who are already married, Paul says, stay married. For those of you who are not, remain as such. He meant that in 1 Corinthians 7. And I'm starting to look into whether or not Matthew 24 is telling me by the Spirit that if we're going to go into the tribulation soon, the door to all marriages, even holy marriages, are now going to be shut. Because the ark is going to be shut, and there isn't going to be much left. Forget about what our flesh wants anymore. I'm giving it 6 months to see if I can go without anybody and do this alone. No wife, no nothing. And I'm going to make good on it because I've learned my lessons from having relationships recently. They're not going to work. People are too fickle and nobody's committed anymore. I mean, even pastors are divorcing their wives to go find younger women. I mean, no wonder, right? But understand that the reason why is because Yahuwah is allowing the wicked to control this now. He's allowing Satan to steal the institution of marriage. The churches are not going to help you. Only Yahuwah is your help. Take 6 months if you've just gotten out of a bad relationship like I have. Just set yourself apart. And if we are to go on, then maybe you seek it out, maybe you don't. Maybe you can think, like maybe I'm hoping for, that I won't ever need a wife. I can just do all my ministry with a lot of support of brothers and sisters. I can't be presumptuous to tell you I know I can go with that one, but I'm going to tell you what, if we're coming up on the tribulation, it ain't going to matter anyway. Remember that. I'm going to sign out. I'm going to bid you all shalom, shalom. I reign in peace.